as details around the Lusikisiki mass shooting continue to unfold, concerns around the proliferation of high-caliber weapons on the streets have again been raised. Let's discuss this with Willem Els, who is a security expert at the Institute for Security Studies. Willem, always a pleasure having you on the program. Thanks for coming on. And these are incredibly high-caliber weapons, some of them rifles, some of them used in hunting. Where would people find these kinds of weapons? How would criminals get their hands on these kinds of weapons?
Good afternoon to you. Yeah, indeed. If you look at the photographs that became available after the arrest, we see that some of those weapons are assault-type rifles or AK-47 assault-type rifles. And now those rifles are not for sale in South Africa to the general public. It's also only used by a very small contingent of our military. So it is not widely available in our forces or in the public to buy. So that gives us the indication that they must have been smuggled across our borders. We know that within South Africa, Zimbabwe, and in Mozambique, they estimate that an estimated 4.7 million illegal firearms are in circulation. And these firearms are crossing our borders due to the porosity of the borders, but also because of corruption and these networks that they smuggle it back and forth. The other rifle that you mentioned, it's a typical hunting rifle. That is being used for hunters to hunt your typical impala or kudu. And those rifles are quite expensive. They sell in the vicinity of 70,000 rand for a rifle. And we suspect that must have been the loot of a house invasion or robbery or maybe a farm attack, where they typically then harvest these weapons.
Huh, that's very interesting, isn't it? And I mean, it speaks to, I spoke to Gun Free South Africa not too long ago here on 405, and one of the things they talked about was the importance of a firearms registry. And they also touched on the fact that there are quite a number of guns that are either lost or stolen in South Africa every single day. The number that they gave us is 24. So 24 guns of different caliber either lost or stolen every day in South Africa. What does that tell us about just how easily these weapons are available if indeed you want to do exactly what these suspects are alleged to have done?
Yeah, unfortunately so. These criminals, they know that if they've got a firearm, they've got power and they can perpetrate their acts. So they are targeting the public, especially with their house invasions, farm attacks, etc., where they then force the occupants of the house to open up the safes, and then they loot those weapons. But we also see that the police, in terms of recent reports, they are losing a tremendous amount of weapons. At one stage, it was even reported that they are one of the major suppliers to the illegal arms trade because of the rate in which they are losing their weapons through negligence. But also what we noticed is that policemen are more and more being targeted for their firearms. So when a police officer is walking down the street, he's alone, he's approached from behind, and then his firearm is taken by force by means of another firearm. So these criminals are ruthless, and they are targeting these people because they know what the value of those firearms are.
What do you make of the suggestion, Willem, that we need to limit and, in fact, restrict exactly who owns a gun, the kind of weapons people own, and the purpose that they would own or buy that weapon for? Do we need that kind of increased restriction in South Africa?
Well, South Africa has got very strict gun laws. Ever since 1994, we've got a very strict gun regulatory framework. And the challenge is that, it seems that our policy since 94 has failed us. So I think it's time for us to relook at our strategies and see how we can find new and fresh solutions to that. There are people that argue for and against it. For instance, the country that is the most armed country in the world in terms of per capita and the amount of firearms owned per house is actually one of the most peaceful countries in the world, and that's Switzerland. So yeah, there are arguments for and there are arguments against it. But I think South Africa is unique. We have to find unique solutions for South Africa, and that should be based on an inclusive approach where we get all the role players around the table and come up with innovative solutions.
Right. The reason why I'm asking you that question is because, even though you might own a gun for valid reason, just the risk of that gun falling into the wrong hands is perhaps why we need even more limitation.
Yeah, that is, like I said, there's an argument for that. So whenever you've got a firearm and you're well trained, and you're looking well after it, and you need to use it in a time of need, it's your best friend. But also it opens you up to be a target, should the perpetrators know that you are in possession of a firearm. One of the other sources actually of these firearms is, with every cash and transit robbery, your guards are armed with either side weapons, and they've got assault rifles with them. So every CIT robbery, these weapons are also then looted from them. So these criminals are opportunistic, and they will find a way to find these weapons. And unfortunately, due to our situation, I mean, these guards need to be armed in order to protect the money. So it's a catch-22 at the moment.
Yeah. The Firearms Control Amendment Bill, as I understand it, Willem, has been sitting on the police minister's desk for quite some time. We know that that ministry has changed hands over the last few months or so. But are there really important segments in that bill that need to be implemented as a matter of urgency, in your opinion?
I think so. Any of those sections were born out of necessity, but I think it's an ideal opportunity for the minister now to open it up and to encourage a more inclusive. The minister opened up in terms of security to the private sector, to security companies, and to actually the whole of South Africa to assist and to come on board in the fight against crime. So I think you should extend that approach to the firearms as well, because you've got a lot of arms owners that I think can contribute towards the debate, but also your security companies, because your security companies are in possession of much more firearms than our armed forces. So we have to sit around and we have to come up with a solution, because clearly what we have in place is not working.
Yeah, absolutely. And Willem Els with the Institute for Security Studies, let me thank you for your time. The issue of gun control is again and always on our agenda. Those suspects who were apprehended in connection with the firearms that were allegedly used in the Lusikisiki massacre, they're appearing in Flagstaff. In fact, the same prosecutor who is leading the case of the suspects arrested in connection with the mass murder will also be involved in the Flagstaff issue insofar as these high-caliber weapons are concerned. So we'll keep you posted on those developments.